Yo, look, it's your boy, Chill, back with another video that's raw, unedited, nothing extra. And today I want to talk to y'all about emotional intelligence. See, emotional intelligence will probably save you from most of the arguments, the problems it brings, and helps you with boundaries and so many other things. The reason that a lot of people end up getting into situations like crashing out is because they're not recognizing that in the moment they're about to crash out, they're about to spaz, they're about to have some type of buildup. And if you notice with your emotions, it's always something that it's like a rush. It is something that just comes in. When you get angry, it's not, you can have a buildup, but that snapping moment is absolutely a rush. When that sadness, when you get tears and any of that type of stuff, that's a rush of emotions that come up. And you got to learn how to control those and remember that that's energy at the end of the day. See, a good way to explain that would be, you know how when you get angry and you see those people in the gym and they be lifting weights, that's just like outrageous. I ain't gonna lie to you. And then you got people who make music when they're sad and they were able to change their sadness into a song that goes hits, like making hits. Absolutely. I think that's how Adele blew up in the first place. Um, just being cautious of those moments is what helps you turn that type of stuff into something you can profit off of. But if you're not recognizing that, then you most of the time end up just crashing out. And that's why I felt like talking about it. See, the first step to even gaining emotional intelligence is recognizing that you have emotions. You have the right to feel certain ways. You have the right to feel upset, angry when you do go through things. Now, how you handle them is the intelligence part. And when you start to handle your emotions in a better way, you become more well respected in the first place. People look at you, you gain an aura, you gain some type of perception of how you handle things. I remember there were plenty of times I could crash out, but I explained myself so well to a female and then just was like, I'm not about to allow myself to be taken out of character, continuing to be around you when I know you're messing up my aura, my spirit, my whatever you want to call it. And the biggest thing that I had to recognize was that I deserve to feel those type of ways and to express myself. But I can't let them just outwardly go any way that they want to. I see y'all, I know y'all see the smoke and all that type of stuff. Not too much, not too much. So I'd say the first step is always recognizing that you have feelings and you have the right to feel them. It's just the way you express them is what you need to handle in the first place. The second thing that I would recognize with emotional intelligence is empathy. See, when you feel for other people, a lot of people use empathy in ways where they can manipulate it. So like dudes, when they see that, oh, they know what empathy is, so they understand when a girl get out of their relationship, they know to holler at her because she's probably down. But that's not the type of empathy you really want to have. That's you manipulating people. What you want to do is feel for people. So a good example would be your homie. Say he ended up losing his job, his girl just left him, his legs cut off or any of that type of stuff. Crazy work. You you think he want to hear you say you gonna be all right, champ? Like, no, that's not what he wants to hear. He wants to hear it. Dang, bro, I'm sorry this happened to you. Same thing for the girls. The girls to comfort that person. That's what empathy is when you feel for them in some type of way. Which, by the way, this ain't gonna be a long video. I got like a couple things I want to talk about. Just signs on what emotional intelligence is, and then that's it. There's a bunch of different ways you can practice or evolve on your emotional intelligence, but I'm going to talk about maybe four things tops. So back to what I was saying, just recognizing that other people don't want to just hear the you'll be all right, you'll be good. They want to be actually felt for. And when you get into a relationship with a female, she's going to really want you to show empathy, of course. You need to still have your own boundaries. And like I told you before, recognize that you have your own feelings. So if y'all two have come to some argument and you feel some type of way and this person feels some type of way, y'all taking that time to step back or being able to regulate how those emotions are expressed between the two of y'all, that will help y'all out in the long run. But regardless, without a relationship, you being able to do that with anybody is going to help you in the long run. You know, you could do it with family, friends, all that type of stuff, and they'll respect you furthermore when you start to do those things. Another thing that I would have to tell you would be to talk to yourself. That's, you know, and I'm not talking about like talk to yourself like those people you see on the street. Not to say anything's wrong with them. They got their own things they're talking to and whatever they got going on. But you talking to yourself, finding the time to just be alone and then actually having that conversation with yourself. So like, you know, remember when you were a kid and you would get in trouble and then you would probably be talking a little junk about your parents and junk. Like you get in the room, you start maybe cussing a little bit, any of that type of stuff. You were being your own therapist. You were being your own counselor in those moments. And when you start recognizing and then talking to yourself through those moments, you know, that's free counseling. You're your best counselor most of the time. You don't want to, I can't say all the time because sometimes we can walk ourselves into some problems, you know, just talking to yourself without other advice going in. But for basic, most of the time, if you actually are having that conversation with yourself like you were another person, and then actually listening to the other parts that's like, well, there is that reason, you know, like say I stepped on Buddy's shoes or something, and then, you know, he decided to cuss me out or something, and then we get into argument. When you alone in your head, you could be like, well, I did step on his shoes. That is, you know, you got to recognize that's what the empathy part is for. You know, you got to look at it from other people's perspectives. And talking to yourself and analyzing those moments, that's one of the best ways to handle that. That's one of the key ways. Talking to yourself is amazing when you really get into it. Like I said, not to seem crazy, you don't want to be talking to yourself out in public. You know, that'll probably get you in one of the mental wards. But when you find that time alone, 100%, nothing's wrong with that. And then, I got one more thing. Oh yeah. And then you have to remember that other people have an unspoken language. See, not everything, you can't just read what people say. You can't just listen to what comes out of people's mouths. You have to actually pay attention to what their body language is expressing, the way they look at you. Like when your kid or somebody, they roll their eyes at you, that's a sign of them not respecting you. And if somebody's not respecting you, then should you be around that person? Even if they're saying, all right, okay, cool, regardless, they're showing you with their body language. And there's an unspoken language with everyone. You know, when you're talking to somebody and they don't really care, they may rush your conversation. They may rush you to be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. If you are setting or talking to someone, you have to expect and see where people are respecting you while you have that conversation. That is important because, like I said, you can't just fall for what people say. People can tell you something and their body is a whole different thing. You got to look at actions. That's why that's one of the biggest phrases people say is you can't really pay attention to what people say. You got to pay attention to what people do. So when you start to look at those things, you know, looking at what people are doing, the consistent behavior behind them, you know, and actually paying attention to it, because too many people go on autopilot for real. Just like, you know, they have a conversation with somebody and then they walk off and forget that this person legit was just rolling their eyes, or this person has been late picking you up 5 times. It's all in the behavior of other people. And when you start to recognize that people's behavior is important, it will help you avoid dealing with situations you shouldn't be dealing with. And that's, you know, that's it's not something that you're just going to gain overnight. It's going to take experience. So you're going to have to still get out there, talk to people, and, you know, experience what people will do to say, like, because, you know, you got, the world is full of a bunch of actors. The world is a bunch of full of lies. So you're going to have to take your own advice on things and then actually read the situations, the rooms, read energy, all that type of stuff. The energy is the biggest thing. Because if I'm looking at you like this and I'm like, I love you, and my face is, instead, I'm just like, I love you so much. Not to say anything, you feel me? Not for all my niggas out here, my bad, gang. But I'm just giving an example. When you start to do those things and you're able to see those things, the difference in those two, where I was just like, I love you, or any of that type of stuff, there wasn't really anything felt behind that. And if you couldn't tell the difference between those two, that should let you know what kind of things you should work on in the beginning. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I'm gonna stay still consistent. I hope y'all are taking care of yourself. I'm taking care of mine. I just got done with my exercise, and we should all be exercising, taking care of ourselves, and stay blessed, you know.